The squat. You walk up to the rack, bar on your back, and lower yourself down like you're sitting into a chair that keeps retreating from you, then stand back up and pretend that wasn't hard. This is the exercise every gym bro, every physical therapist, and somehow your grandmother's chair standing routine all agree on, which almost never happens in fitness. The mechanism is refreshingly simple. Squatting loads your quads, glutes, and hamstrings simultaneously through one of the largest ranges of motion available to the human body, which is exactly why it recruits more total muscle mass per rep than almost anything else on this list. That's also why squat day produces the specific kind of soreness that makes stairs feel like a personal betrayal for 48 hours afterward. Depth is the eternal argument. Half the internet insists you need to squat until your hamstrings kiss your calves, or it doesn't count, but the actual research says full range squats build more overall leg size, while partial squats let you overload the exact position you're training, meaning neither camp is fully right, and both sides have been yelling at each other in gym forums for absolutely no reason. Should you do it? Yes. Almost without exception, this belongs in nearly every leg day that's ever existed for a reason, and yes, your quads will eventually get big enough to file a noise complaint against your own pants. The deadlift. Bend down, grip the bar, and stand up while the bar drags along your shins like it's trying to leave permanent marks as a souvenir. This is the single heaviest lift most people will ever do in their entire life. And the mechanism behind that is straightforward. You're recruiting your entire posterior chain at once. Hamstrings, glutes, back, traps, grip, all firing together to move a dead weight off the floor, which is a genuinely rare full body demand that almost nothing else replicates. Powerlifters treat this as the ultimate test of raw strength, and there's a reason for that. Unlike a squat or bench where the bar path is somewhat guided by your setup, a deadlift starts from a complete standstill on the floor, meaning you get zero help from momentum or a stretch reflex. It's pure strength from a dead stop. The myth that refuses to die is that deadlifts destroy your back, when in reality, the injuries almost always trace back to rounding the spine under heavy load rather than the movement itself. A well-executed deadlift is one of the more back-friendly heavy lifts that exists. Should you do it? Yes. If your form is solid, this builds more raw strength per session than nearly anything else you could choose to do with a barbell, and it'll grow your traps until you look permanently mid-shrug, like you're perpetually unsure about something. The bench press, lying flat, lowering a bar to your chest, then pressing it back up, this is the single most tested lift in every commercial gym on earth, to the point where "how much do you bench" has become the universal opening line of gym small talk, whether you asked for it or not. The mechanism is a coordinated push involving your chest, front shoulders, and triceps all working together, which is exactly why it lets you move more weight than any single joint chest exercise ever could. 3 muscle groups sharing the load instead of one carrying it alone. This is also the exercise responsible for an entire subculture of guys who only train chest and somehow still wonder why their legs look like they belong to a different person. The myth worth killing is that a wide grip always builds a bigger chest. Grip width actually shifts emphasis between chest and triceps rather than making the exercise inherently better or worse. It's a tool for emphasis, not a universal upgrade. Should you do it? Yes, this is a foundational strength builder. Just don't let it become the only upper body exercise in your entire program, unless your goal is a chest that walks into rooms 4 seconds before the rest of you does. The pull-up. Hanging from a bar, pulling your chin up and over it, then lowering back down under control. This is the exercise that separates people who talk about fitness from people who can actually demonstrate it, since there's no way to fake your way through a pull-up with good form and bad strength. The mechanism recruits your lats, biceps, and grip simultaneously while moving your entire body weight through space, which is exactly why it's brutally humbling for beginners and endlessly satisfying once you can actually string a few together. Unlike a lat pull-down, which lets a machine guide the bar path for you, a pull-up demands real stabilization the whole way up, which is part of why so many gym goers can pull down an impressive stack of plates and still struggle to do a single strict rep of their own body weight. The myth worth addressing is that kipping or swinging counts the same as a strict pull-up. Using momentum to get your chin over the bar trains a completely different skill than pure strength. They're not interchangeable, even though they look similar from across the gym. Should you do it? Yes. And if you can't do one yet, banded or assisted variations are a completely legitimate path there, not a lesser version of the exercise, and eventually your back will widen into enough of a V shape that regular jackets stop zipping comfortably. A genuinely annoying problem to have. The overhead press, standing or seated, pressing a bar from shoulder height straight up until your arms lock out overhead. This exercise loads your shoulders under more direct vertical resistance than any other movement on this list, which is exactly why your front deltoids get absolutely hammered doing it, because you're pressing straight up rather than at an angle. Your shoulder has to stabilize the bar path entirely on its own without a bench underneath guiding things, which is a large part of why overhead press numbers sit well below bench press numbers even for lifters who train both religiously. This is the exercise most responsible for actual functional shoulder strength, the kind you use lifting a suitcase into an overhead bin, rather than just the kind that looks impressive in a gym mirror. The myth worth killing is that overhead pressing is inherently dangerous for your shoulders. The real risk comes specifically from excessive lower back arch or poor thoracic mobility compensating for the movement, not from pressing overhead itself, which is a completely natural range of motion for a healthy shoulder. Should you do it? Yes, this belongs in any well-rounded program. It's simply too effective a shoulder and core builder to skip, right up until your shoulders get wide enough to start clipping door frames you swear used to be plenty big enough. The bicep curl, standing with a dumbbell or barbell, curling the weight up toward your shoulder through pure elbow flexion. This is the single most mocked exercise in the entire gym, and also somehow still the one everyone secretly does anyway, because arms are what people actually notice first. The mechanism is about as isolated as it gets. Your biceps flex the elbow, and that's essentially the entire job description. No other major muscle group meaningfully assists, which is exactly why the weight you can curl looks embarrassingly small compared to a squat or bench number. This is the exercise that built an entire genre of gym meme about guys who train arms every single day while somehow never training legs. A stereotype that exists because it's rooted in enough truth to sting. The myth worth addressing is that curling variations dramatically change which part of the bicep grows. Your bicep has two heads, and grip and wrist position genuinely shift emphasis slightly, but it's a subtle effect, not the dramatic reshaping certain YouTube thumbnails promise you. Should you do it? Yes. In moderation, it's a legitimately useful isolation tool. Just don't let it replace the pulling exercises that are already training your biceps as a side effect anyway, and be prepared for the specific tragedy of outgrowing every t-shirt sleeve you currently own. The lunge. Stepping forward, dropping your back knee toward the floor, then pushing back to standing, one leg at a time. This exercise solves a problem that squats and deadlifts both quietly share. They're bilateral movements, meaning your stronger leg can always bail out your weaker one without you ever noticing the imbalance building underneath. A lunge forces each leg to work completely independently, which is exactly why people who squat heavy for years sometimes discover a genuinely humbling strength gap the very first time they try a proper set of lunges. The single leg stability demand also recruits stabilizing muscles around your hip and ankle that a standard squat with both feet planted never fully challenges, which is part of why athletes in sports involving actual running and cutting tend to program lunges heavily, regardless of how strong their squat already is. The myth worth killing is that your front knee should never pass your toes, a rule that gets repeated constantly, despite research showing a slight forward knee travel is completely normal and not inherently dangerous. The actual injury risk comes from loading a knee angle your joint isn't conditioned for yet, not from a specific number of inches. Should you do it? Yes, especially if your squat numbers have been climbing while single leg strength quietly hasn't kept pace. Otherwise, be ready for the day you discover one leg wobbling like a newborn deer, while the other one struts around like it's never had a bad day in its life. The row. Whether it's a barbell bent over your hips, a dumbbell braced on a bench, or a cable pulled straight into your stomach, the movement is the same, pulling weight toward your torso by driving your elbows back, and it's the exercise responsible for basically every well-built back you've ever admired without realizing why. The mechanism is a direct pulling contraction through your lats, rhomboids, and rear delts, which matters more than it sounds, because rows are one of the only common exercises actively working the muscles that pull your shoulder blades back and down, directly counteracting the rounded forward posture that a desk job and a lifetime of pressing movements both quietly build into almost everyone. That's exactly why rows are the unsung hero sitting underneath good posture. A strong upper back doesn't happen by accident. It happens because someone actually trained the pulling side of their program as hard as the pushing side. The myth worth killing is that rows are just back day filler compared to pull-ups. In reality, rows let you load significantly heavier weight and control the range of motion more precisely than a bodyweight pull-up ever could. They're training a genuinely different strength quality, not a lesser substitute. Should you do it? Yes. And if your program is already stacked with bench and overhead pressing, this is very likely the single most underprogrammed exercise you own, the one quietly responsible for whether you stand like a proud human or a question mark that skipped back day. The real takeaway, every exercise on this list earned its spot for the same basic reason. It loads a movement pattern your body actually needs. Squatting, hip hinging, pushing, pulling, or stabilizing, and does it about as efficiently as physically possible. These are the main compound lifts, the ones that build an actual base of muscle before you ever touch a single isolation exercise, which is exactly how Arnold built the physique that got him famous years before anyone in the world knew his name as a politician. He was just squatting, benching, and rowing his way there, one boring set at a time. Squats, deadlifts, and lunges cover your lower body across bilateral, hip-dominant, and single-leg patterns. Bench press and overhead press cover pushing in two different directions. Pull-ups, rows, and curls cover pulling, one compound and brutally humbling, one heavily loaded and quietly underprogrammed, one isolated and endlessly mimicked. None of these exercises are secretly overrated or secretly magic. They're just the movements that keep showing up in every serious program for the same reason certain songs never leave the radio. They simply work, and nobody's found a better replacement yet.